Part 1. The Boy, the Two Fathers, and the Question Money Never Answered. Money entered the boy's life long before he ever understood what it was. Not as coins, not as notes, but as a feeling. A feeling he noticed on the faces of adults. Tension, hope, fear. He saw it at the dinner table when conversations quietly changed tone. He saw it late at night when lights stayed on longer than they should. And even as a child, he felt something didn't add up. The adults around him worked hard, very hard, yet money always seemed to be missing, somehow slipping through fingers, running ahead, never waiting. Two fathers shaped the boy's understanding of this mystery. One was his biological father, highly educated, respected, a man who believed deeply in security, education, good grades, a stable job. He spoke often of climbing the ladder, of working hard, of playing by the rules. And the boy believed him. Why wouldn't he? This man worked tirelessly. Yet every month there was stress. Bills arrived like uninvited guests. And money was discussed with worry, not excitement. The second father was different. He wasn't wealthy, at least not yet. He hadn't finished high school. But when he spoke about money, his voice was calm, curious, almost playful, where one father said, "I can't afford it." The other would pause and ask, "How can I afford it?" That single difference settled quietly in the boy's mind, not loudly, not urgently, but like a seed. At 9 years old, the boy experienced his first real frustration with money. He and his friend wanted what other children had: pocket money, freedom, choice. They didn't want to wait, so they did what children often do. They tried to solve the problem quickly. They attempted to make money on their own. It failed, embarrassingly. And when adults found out, they laughed. Not cruelly, but dismissively, as if the boy's desire to understand money was childish. Confused and discouraged, he went to the second father, the one who didn't laugh, the one who listened, quietly, and then said something the boy would never forget. "Most people," he said slowly, "spend their entire lives working for money. They never stop to ask what money actually is." That day, the boy wasn't offered comfort. He wasn't given encouragement. He was given a choice: to learn or to walk away. Learning, he was warned, would not feel good at first. It would involve confusion, boredom, and discomfort. But if the boy stayed, if he endured the feeling most people run from, he might one day see money differently, not as something to chase, but as something to understand. And so the boy stayed, unaware that this quiet decision would slowly separate his life from the path most people follow. Part 2. Fear, Wages, and the Invisible Loop. The first lesson did not feel like a lesson. It felt like boredom. The boy showed up early in the morning, swept floors, carried boxes, did small tasks no one noticed, and at the end of the day, he was handed a few coins. Not much. Barely enough to matter. The boy felt something rising inside him, a tightness, a frustration he didn't yet have words for. He watched customers walk in and out. He watched money change hands. He watched adults make decisions. And yet, he stood still, doing work that seemed to lead nowhere. Days passed, then weeks. The boredom deepened, and finally, the boy exploded. "This isn't fair," he said. "I work hard. I deserve more." The second father did not argue. He did not explain. He only watched. Then, calmly, he asked a question. "What are you feeling right now?" The boy paused. Anger, disappointment, fear. Fear that his time was being wasted. Fear that he was being used. Fear that he might always feel this powerless. The second father nodded slowly. "That feeling," he said, "is what most people spend their entire lives running from." He explained nothing more. Instead, he painted a picture of adults, standing in long lines, waiting for paychecks, relieved when they arrived, terrified when they stopped. Fear, he said, drives people. Fear of not having enough, fear of losing comfort, fear of falling behind. And so, they accept wages, not because wages make them free, but because wages make fear quiet. For a while. The boy thought of his biological father, a good man, an honest man, who worked harder each year, yet seemed more tired, more worried, trapped in responsibilities that kept growing. The second father continued, "When people feel fear," he said, "they stop thinking. They look for safety. They look for comfort. And comfort," he paused, "has a cost." The boy began to see the loop. Work, earn, spend, repeat. A loop so normal that no one questioned it. The second father did something unexpected. He stopped paying the boy. No wages, no coins, nothing. The boy was shocked, confused, angry again. But then something strange happened. Without wages, the fear loosened. There was nothing to lose. And for the first time, boy started looking around. He noticed spaces others ignored, opportunities hiding in plain sight, ways money moved without effort. He began to understand something subtle, that wages were not evil, but dependence was dangerous. That fear was not the enemy, but obeying it was, and quietly, without a single rule being spoken. The boy stepped outside the invisible loop. Part 3. What looked like wealth and what wasn't. As the boy grew older, the world grew louder. More voices, more opinions, more certainty from people who sounded confident. School rewarded obedience. Jobs rewarded loyalty. And money rewarded appearances. The boy watched classmates chase symbols, titles, promotions, shiny things that announced success, houses that looked impressive, cars that turned heads, lifestyles that felt heavy. He noticed something strange. The people who looked the richest often sounded the most anxious. Conversations circled around payments, deadlines, pressure. The boy himself fell into the trap. His first real job felt like freedom, a steady paycheck, approval, pride. With income came permission, permission to buy, permission to upgrade, permission to live larger. At first, it felt like progress. Then came the weight. Bills, maintenance, commitments that did not care how he felt. The second father watched quietly. When the boy spoke of his new life, The older man asked only one question. Does it put money in your pocket or take it out? The boy hesitated. No one had ever asked him that before. He thought of the house, the pride it brought, the responsibility it demanded. Every month, money left, without argument. The second father told him a story of men who mistook comfort for freedom, of people who built golden cages and called them success. They think they're winning, he said softly, because they look ahead and see more. But they never look behind and see what's chasing them. The boy began to notice a pattern. Money entered. Money exited. But some things quietly demanded more every year. He also noticed something else. A small group of people lived differently. They spoke less. They spent less. And they seemed unbothered. Their money moved even when they rested. Their time belonged to them. The boy made mistakes. He chased deals he didn't understand, trusted voices that sounded confident, lost money, felt embarrassed. Each failure burned, but it burned clean. It taught him to see beneath the surface, to stop asking, "How much does it pay?" and begin asking, "What does it become over time?" Slowly, almost imperceptibly, his idea of wealth changed. Not as what he owned, but as what no longer owned him. Part 4. Intelligence, Emotion, and the Quiet War Inside. As the boy grew into a man, something unexpected revealed itself. It wasn't lack of opportunity, and it wasn't lack of intelligence. It was something quieter, emotion. He met people who were brilliant, highly educated, skilled beyond doubt, yet they lived paycheck to paycheck. At the same time, he met others who struggled in school, but seemed oddly free. They made mistakes, they failed, but they kept moving forward. The second father explained this through a quiet observation. Most people, he said, are not limited by what they know. They are limited by what they feel. Fear whispered, greed shouted, and ego stood in between. The man watched himself hesitate, not because an opportunity was bad, but because it was unfamiliar. He watched himself say yes to comfort, even when comfort cost him time. The second father once took him to meet investors, not to impress, but to observe. Some spoke endlessly, some showed numbers, some bragged about wins, and some sat quietly, listening. Those quiet ones asked different questions. They weren't chasing money. They were studying behavior, why people panicked, why people rushed, why people held on too long, or let go too soon. The man realized something unsettling. Most financial decisions were emotional decisions, wearing logical clothing. He remembered his biological father again, a man of intelligence who avoided risk at all costs, and in doing so, avoided growth. The second father never told him to be fearless. He taught him to recognize fear and not let it drive. Slowly, the man stopped reacting, stopped rushing, stopped needing approval. He began to see money not as a reward, but as information, a signal, a reflection of behavior. And this shift, this quiet internal change, was where real freedom began. Part 5. Opportunity does not knock, it whispers. By now, the man understood something most people never notice. Opportunity rarely announces itself. It doesn't knock loudly. It doesn't arrive dressed in confidence. Most of the time, it appears quietly, uncertain, and incomplete. He saw people wait for certainty, for guarantees, for permission, and in that waiting, they missed everything. The second father once told him, "The difference between the rich and everyone else is not how much they earn, but how they see." The man began training his eyes, not to look for money, but to look for imbalance. Where people complained, where systems were inefficient, where fear caused hesitation. He also learned something uncomfortable. Most opportunities feel risky because they are, but risk was not the enemy. Ignorance was. He watched intelligent people talk themselves out of action. They said they were waiting for the right time, waiting for more money, waiting to feel ready. The second father once smiled at this. "Ready," he said softly, "is a feeling that never arrives." The man learned by doing, by stepping forward imperfectly, by making small moves, by failing publicly. Some ventures worked, many didn't. Money was lost. Confidence was shaken. But something else grew stronger, his ability to recover, to adapt, to keep going. He noticed something subtle. The more he acted, the quieter fear became. Not because fear disappeared, but because it lost authority. The man stopped asking, "What if I fail?" and began asking, "What will I learn?" This shift changed everything. He no longer chased money. He chased understanding, and money quietly followed. Part 6. The Quiet Freedom. Years passed, not in dramatic leaps, not in sudden breakthroughs, but in small, quiet shifts. The man noticed something one morning. He woke up without urgency. No alarm shouting demands, no weight pressing on his chest. For the first time, time felt spacious. Not because he was rich, but because he was not trapped. Money moved, even when he didn't. Not in excess, not extravagantly, but reliably. He thought of both fathers. One had followed the path he was told was safe, worked hard, played by the rules, and yet lived under pressure until the end. The other had chosen uncertainty, questions over answers, understanding over approval. Neither man was wrong. They had simply answered different questions. One asked, "How do I stay safe?" The other asked, "How do I stay free?" The man realized something simple. Most people never choose their financial life. They inherit it from parents, from culture, from fear disguised as advice. Freedom did not come from money alone. It came from seeing clearly, from understanding how emotions move decisions, from refusing to trade time for comfort endlessly. He no longer judged success by appearances, or by income, or by approval. Success felt quieter now. It felt like choice, the ability to say yes, and just as importantly, the ability to say no. The world had not changed. People still rushed, still worried, still chased symbols of success. But the man moved differently through it, observing, choosing, remaining calm. And in that calm, there was wealth. If this story stayed with you, it's because somewhere inside you recognized yourself. You'll find the books and resources mentioned linked quietly in the description. And if you want more stories like this, stories that change how you see money, habits, and life, subscribe to Thincora Audio, because true wealth is not loud, it's calm.